Good afternoon and welcome to the Sports Business Playbook. Close friend of mine joining today, Vice President of Sales at Legends with a focus on their events and tour business, and also a fellow Dallas resident. Welcome, Sean. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. It's good to be on with you. I saw the photo in the back, and I'm not in my office today. I'm actually renting an office a little bit today. I'm over here. We got the Country Music Awards taking place at the Star, and so
Wow.
just reminded of that celebration many years ago. If anything, it made me feel a little bit old. So good to be on with you, man.
Me too, man. Yes, he's referring to a picture just right behind me with the Jones family celebrating what we were able to do around the Dallas Cowboys' new stadium. And so, yeah, that was an exciting time. And I think back, I don't even want to say how many years ago it was, but too long to actually reference on this today. But look, we're going to hop right in today. I have a ton of respect for Sean and his career and the things that he's done, so much so that I knew that I wanted to have Sean on the podcast, but there are 4 or 5 things that I really thought, hey, this would be really great to talk with Sean about. And so we talked and then we narrowed it down. And one of the things that I see from you consistent, and also just knowing you, having conversations with you, is just how you connect with your people and your team. And that was the reason that we decided that we were going to talk about building a winning culture. And as that is the foundation, there's 5 questions, that Sean and I talked about that as a leader, as a manager, you have to answer yes to these questions to be doing it at a high level. Did I leave anything out, Sean?
No, and I think you hit right on. I mean, there's obviously so many tactics out there, books probably that everybody's tuning in has probably read, maybe listen to similar podcasts or demonstrations. But, through and through, where I've seen a lot of the most talented, groups and organizations really shine through is following some of the basic principles that we're going to discuss a little bit today.
Yeah. And I think the first one that we talked about, and honestly, Sean, this one seems a little obvious, I think, but when I'm in market, when I'm working with teams, and I really push back on this to directors and managers and sales leaders, and it's, have you set very clear and concise expectations for your team? So when they walk in every day, they know exactly where their focus should be. Talk to me about how you do that in your past and previous experiences with ensuring your team knows where their focus should be.
Yeah, it's a game of telephone, right? I think if you ask people that are in the leadership side, they'll say yes, 100%. They know exactly what's expected of them, right? Some may even just say, yeah, they knew what they signed up for, right? You probably hear that a lot, and it's like that was in the job description, so they should know exactly what their task is. For me personally, the training regimen, right? And everybody probably is concerned about what's the training going to look like to get me prepared. But the training really never stops. And so a big part for me and my teams is we're constantly training because honestly, our business is constantly evolving, right? And the more and more that you're, focusing on your people, and really the key probably piece here is one, yes, we have training routines and follow this and shadow this and go through these programs, know how to use everything. That comes as a standard, and we build out templates to make sure from day one, here's what you go through. And, Legends also even has kind of a formality from our HR team that they go through kind of a segment as well to get to know the organization. But, if you're focusing and you're at, an AT&T Stadium, like I mentioned earlier, I'm at the Star, if somebody's starting day one, I immediately put on a one-on-one on their calendar, right, to make sure that we have really what we kind of do rolling one-on-ones, and that we're going to check in after you've gone through all of our initial training, I sit in and then do, all right, I want you to repeat back to me this process, right? I want you to walk me through what you would do, kind of a what if scenario to take
Yeah.
you through really all the things that you probably would be up against. And then it turns into what can I do for you, right? And I
Sure.
know we'll talk a little bit about servant leadership, but a big part of the expectation piece is in order to serve your team, you have to be able to say, hey, what can I do to actually serve you, right? What do you
Yeah.
need?
Yeah.
And you'll be shocked at how much somebody will say, well, honestly, I need this. And it could be the biggest or the smallest thing. Man, I need pens. I need to
Yeah.
write. You know, it's like just stuff like that. And so you may think, yeah, I checked everything off, but maybe you haven't. And it's shocking. There was a scenario. I forget the survey that was done a while back. Actually, it was Deloitte did a survey a few years ago, just a survey, you know, kind of just a large part of their a lot of organizations across the country, and 51% of employees um, are nervous or feel like they can't go to their manager with
Yeah.
concerns.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means
That's
right now, wherever you're sitting, half of your team doesn't want to come tell you what if they got a problem or if they can't do something. So they just try to figure it out on their by themselves. Right.
yeah.
So it's
Wow.
true that you got to set expectations. You got to
Yeah,
set them,
listen,
and also part of that, let them know that like you can come to me if you don't know what's going on.
sure. No, it not, and I want to get right back to the training piece because that's something that I know that's a big part of your culture. But
Sure.
we also talked about, setting expectations and at times they should change, right? Like
Yep.
depending on where your focus is. And I think I see leaders and they're scared to make changes or move off. But no, truthfully, like this, like at times it might be based on calls, at times it might be based on
Yep.
face-to-face meetings. And it can't just be we assume they know. We have to walk them down that path. So expectations could and should change like throughout the year,
100%.
right?
Yeah, 100%. I think you know, kind of doing an audit on your culture is
Yeah.
key, right? Whether it is you're auditing your own personal calendar, you're checking in with your group to say, hey, do you feel like you have enough? Do you need more? And not feel like, hey, what we're doing is enough. We put three trainings on the calendar for the year, and hopefully that'll satisfy and check a box. Your job is not to check the box, right? Your
Yeah.
job is to make sure that your people have what you need, because ultimately, they're eventually going to say, one day, I don't have what I need and I'm not supported here. And if they're, like as I mentioned earlier, if they're not feeling comfortable to come tell you, they'll just leave. Right.
Yeah.
So, you got to make sure that you're doing all the right things to go above and beyond.
No, that's so smart. And I think the second question moving along here that every leader and manager should ask themselves is, have I provided all the tools that my team needs to succeed? They understand what their expectations are, but do they understand how to get there? And the
Sure.
biggest piece to that, at least it came out in our conversations, is having a culture of support and training, not just, as you said, checking a box. Like we did a training, we had a trainer come in. It has to be like sort of embedded in your culture.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then I think it's also like there truly has to be this sign off that everybody understands that like a part of our culture is that we're trying to get 1% better every day. And that has to be kind of shared, right? That isn't just hey, our manager said we got to do this, so let me log in and go, do my training for the day, and then there's no investment. Like you literally have to spend some time and then show the why behind, like, why are we doing this, right? Why is
Yeah.
this important? And then show the results of the why, right? Hey, we're doing this because it means that you're going to be better in this, and if you get better at this, then you can go be in Ryan's position one day, right?
Sure.
And I think that's something that's really interesting with legends and just past teams is this is kind of going back again where I'm feeling old now is you walk around some of the hallways now, and people that maybe I hired 5-6 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They're in at new projects, or they're working, on the sales team, premium team for the Cowboys, or they're in a new venture So they're seeing the results of somebody putting in the work and actually adopting that. And man, that pays tenfold, right? If you're able to see the results and you're walking by it all the time, it allows us to have more credibility in that versus just like, hey, read this document, go to these sessions, and then hopefully we'll grow you, right? It's
Yeah.
now investing in somebody and saying, all right, no, here's where I'm going to get you, but you're going to have to do these steps. This is how we're going to get you there.
Yeah. And look, I think when you think about this, and this is something you spoon fed me as we were preparing for this conversation, and you said, Ryan, one of the questions that we have to bring up, that we have to ask is, and this would be the third thing is, does your team know that you care? And so, and I've seen that in the way that your people respond to you in person. I've seen it, on LinkedIn, and I've seen the buy-in that you've created. So, like, give us, okay, the answers to the test here, Sean. Like, how does your team know that you genuinely care about them professionally, personally, and ultimately about their growth within the organization?
Yeah, I would hope that they know that I care, right? There's just always a genuine response for me that I think was just really embedded for me from other leaders and mentors in my life, the Chad Estes of the world, the Doug Dawsons, people that, you've been around. And I've seen that, but then I think there's also just taking it a step further and making it your own of, okay, I'm going to double down. Like I'm not going to give up on you, but I'm also going to be able to kind of, as we've put it in some situations, love conditionally a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And look, I'm gonna support you, but I'm also gonna tell you where you need to improve. I'm also gonna give you feedback, but I'm expecting it in return. I want you to help, tell me what you need in order for you to get to the next level. And so my team, they know they can call me anytime. They can reach out to me. They can pop in on me. I know, it kind of gets the age old, phrase of open door policy. That's a
Yeah.
real thing. And it really all, I mean, I can't stress this, and people need to think about, how am I showing up to work every day? Am I showing
Yes.
up
Yeah.
as a leader that people want to follow, or am I showing up and I'm bringing everything with me, and I'm only focused on the numbers, or I'm only focused on like, whatever the next call, or I'm only focused on my career growth, and I don't need anybody to get me there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out. Before you know it, you become this bulldozer of a leader, where you don't care about anything else. You're just trying to get through.
Yeah.
But if you're showing up with this intent of, my focus is on Ryan.
Yeah.
If I can improve Ryan 10% today, 1% today, well, I probably can see that somewhere on a revenue model, because
Sure.
that 10% growth in him, now he's going to get 10% better at something, right? And if I can do that with everybody on my team, well, that translates somewhere. And so
Sure.
I think having that approach of like, if I can get my team better, then therefore it's going to make our other processes better. That's how I've always looked at it. And then ultimately, if you have the best people on your team, well, surely you're going to want to keep them in your organization. So you have to figure out ways to grow them within that and not make them leave, right? So
Yeah.
that's always been my approach.
Yeah. Listen, we could do a whole nother podcast, and I'll probably ask you again. I think this is probably my fourth or fifth time asking you to join me on one of these, whether it was at Teambo or where I am now. So, but
Yeah.
we'll hold off on that. Look, there's a couple layers to this too that you and I discussed, and I think one of them was like, know what's going on with them personally at some level. Like, you don't have to intrude, but what if they have a goal of like running a marathon this year,
Sure.
or they're trying to buy a house with their fiance, or what have you.
Yep.
Just kind of getting to know them beyond their primary functions,
Yep.
as a sales and service person. And so how do you interact and engage with your team? Does that happen organically? I've seen some leaders do a personal development plan alongside a professional one.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do
I,
you
I,
approach?
I try to mix the two. So I always do, you know, taking somebody to coffee is probably the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
But in the, when I set up my one-on-ones with my staff, when we have that first one, I let them know right out the gate, this can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
This one-on-one can be completely professional because it turns into like, how do you want to be led and how do you want me to lead you? Somebody like, I want to be strictly business. I don't want to give too much because I don't know you just yet. And over time, once going back to like showing how much you care, it turns into a very more personable, or I'm gonna tell you about what happened this weekend and stuff like that. But I kind of allow them to steer that ship a little bit and say, how do you want this conversation to go? Just know you can tell me about your life. You can tell me about work, what you're struggling with. If you don't like your teammate, it's safe in here.
Yeah.
And I can guide you through how we need to have that conversation, what we need to do, and what are next steps. And just know that nothing's going to leave this room. And I think just setting the groundwork for like, this is okay. That's kind of step one. And then, peeling back some of those layers as time takes on.
Yeah. And look, I don't know if this is a complete parallel to what we're talking today, but I do think a little bit, and it's so important to me and my experience and what I've seen. And you said something just now around how are you showing up to work every day? And I think there's a ton of layers to that. But one of the things that I want young leaders and managers to think about is your team sees. Like they see everything you do, they're watching you. They pick up on your stress. They pick up on when you're happy. They pick up on the way you talk to other folks within your organization. And that becomes the norm, right? And it's almost like as a leader, you want to try for the most part to have like a stronger brain than stronger emotions. You really can't be here. You have to kind of live right in the middle with them because they start to pick up on what you're putting out, right?
Yeah. You have a brand that everybody's looking at, right? And you represent the brand of your team. So, if you represent 20 people on your sales team, everybody's going to look to you. And if they honestly, they're going to associate you and your entire team with how they're being led. They're going to say, oh, that team is misled because Ryan's, he's just tough to work with and blah, blah. So that means everybody else in that team must be hard to work with. Right.
Yeah.
Versus, man, Ryan's great to work with. His team has to be great. And then as they continue on, I mean, I encourage that with because I want everybody to always be their own individual self. Sometimes when we're having conversations with, certain, leaders within other departments, I'm like, go represent yourself in that conversation because I want them to hear from you.
Sure.
Know that you have my support, but they also need to know that like you have a voice in this, like you have an opinion. And so we definitely welcome that. But man, I go back to, I think about my kids, like you mentioned earlier, I got, 3 girls at the house,
beautiful girls.
four if you include my wife. Right. And, so, but I think about every day, like, how do I show up at home? I mean, I can have the worst day ever. Right. And I've always kind of lived by, there's no bad days, only bad moments. And so, I could have those times throughout the day. But guess what? Like my kid could have had the best day in the world. They could have done whatever. But as soon as I show up and go to the door, I'm dad. That's what I got to be, or I'm husband to my wife. All those things, and they don't care about all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And if I walk in the door with my head down and like this, then as you mentioned, like your team could watch you the same way that you walk in and your head's down. You had a rough call or whatever, and you close your door. Nobody talked to me. Well, guess what? They're gonna start closing their door too. And I don't talk to, and so it becomes so contagious and you don't want that type of, scenario to happen. So if you show up in a positive way, it's only going to continue to be contagious, right? You want people to catch that bug, not the other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's so many great nuggets there. And I'm so glad you touched on that. And I think, at this point, right. So like if we were just kind of recap where we've been on this call, one, like, have you set clear and concise expectations? Yes. Do they understand how to get there? So they have the tools to succeed. You're supporting them through training. And then ultimately, do they see that you care? Looking for teaching moments, knowing, like you said, like letting them drive the conversation at times. And what starts to happen is you start to have a really comfortable employee. And like the more comfortable somebody gets, like the more confident they get. And what you'll see is and you know, I do have to mention Mike Toman's name here because he's one of the guys that talked to me about this first. And he's like, Ryan, like when you have a confident person, that's going to be the person that not only stays longer with the organization, but also produces more, right? And that's ultimately where we want to get. But when
Yep.
you think about, okay, now they're producing more, now they're doing what I need them to do. The fourth question that we have is, you know, are you appropriately celebrating them, you know, in the appropriate ways when you need to? And I think it's easy to celebrate somebody when they hit a goal or an expectation, but when's another time we should be celebrating?
Right now,
Yeah,
anybody listening, has somebody on your team in the past 7, 10 days heard good job from you?
yeah,
Just in general, right? Like, and if the answer is no, shoot them a text. I just want to let you
sure.
know, like, really appreciate what you do for this team. I guarantee you'll make their entire month because they'll be like, whoa, that was unexpected,
Yeah,
right? You know, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. You know, for those of you that maybe listen, maybe you have kids. If you don't, like it used to be way back in the day, right? Like you go to a kid's birthday party, everybody brings gifts and presents and all that, and everybody watches them open and celebrate, right? Well, now most birthday parties, everybody brings the gift, but nobody wants to stay to watch that part. So you just take the gifts home because
yeah,
it's just become expected. You're supposed to bring a gift. You know, it's my birthday. Great, bring me the gift. I'll open it later. However, think about the understanding of if the same child just got a gift because man, you did great in school today, and I just want to take you to go get ice cream. Now all of a sudden, it's like, man, this is awesome. This is the best day ever because it wasn't expected.
yeah,
That's how people respond when you just take a moment just to say, I'm going to recognize you did something great today. You know
sure.
what? Take the rest of the day off. You know what? You did, I just wanted to, recognize, hey, real quick, send a quick note and copy somebody that's important on it and say, hey, I just gotta let y'all know Ryan stepped it up this today. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly what it means to the standard and expectations that we set. That's what it means.
yeah,
And just leave it be. There's no reason behind it. And I think those are the moments that you can do it so organically. And that's going to be felt more than just like, well, I hit my goal. So yeah, you're probably supposed to tell me that like I did a great job because I hit my goal.
yeah, 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 exactly. And you talked about celebrating the journey, not always
Hmm.
the outcome, right? Like celebrating, you know, just hard work or being there for a teammate or celebrating like, hey, you haven't closed the sale, but you've had 5 face-to-face meetings the past 3 weeks. Because we know this, if you've managed for any length of time, if they are attached to the journey, if they are motivated by the journey, the product that they will produce, the outcome will be there, right?
Yep,
And
100%.
so the other side of that though is this, right, Sean, is when you have someone who maybe you've set the foundation for them and they're still not getting it, right? Like they're just, you know, they're trending towards or not hitting their goals and expectations. And I would say, we talked about this. I think for me, you know, and I would say I have a pretty good foundation to make this statement. You know, 6.5 years with Teambo and then, you know, GSW, I've probably been out to, you know, call it 100 different teams over that time. The biggest mistake I think managers and leaders do is they're not comfortable holding their team accountable when they're not trending towards or meeting their goals and expectations.
Mhm.
And it actually does so much. It's more of a hindrance for their career growth by not holding them accountable. And so, I don't know, talk about that. Talk about how you hold your team accountable and why that's so important.
Yeah, there's, crucial conversations are important for growth. Um, and if you're having those one-on-ones, you're having those conversations on a more consistent basis, and consistency is huge when you're thinking about leading people. Um, it won't come as a surprise,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I didn't know that that was important to you. I didn't know you wanted me to be, working on my calls. Or I didn't know that I was supposed to do 30 activities today. I didn't know if that was a thing. Setting those standards and recognizing that and kind of when you're questioning in some of those situations, ask them, how do you think you've been performing these past few weeks? Let them evaluate themselves before you instill that and say, hey, let me talk to you and I'm going to give you, some information. Let them evaluate and tell you some feedback and then add on to that feedback. On top of that, you are correct. You haven't been hitting these numbers. And, you mentioned to me that this is important to you and, you're trying to use all that back. But as you know, like working here, we have a standard, right?
Yeah.
And this is what it is. And I feel like if I'm not doing my job and holding you up to that, like I'm honestly failing you. Like, and so if you have identify what you're struggling at, I'm identifying that this, you need to have some, these measures. This is why we have them in place, because ultimately this is what it can lead to. I think you need to make sure you set those expectations early, so that way those conversations don't become hard ones. It's just, hey, that's what I hold everybody to the same measure.
Yeah, they know it's coming. They expect it.
Right.
And, and I think to put a bow on this one, when you set expectations for your team and they consistently don't hit them, we're not saying to rule with a heavy hand. Look for teaching moments, or you need to address it, or else they don't think that you think the expectations or goals are even appropriate. Well, Sean doesn't really think I can hit him. I haven't hit him for 3 weeks and he hasn't said anything, right? So yeah, we have to make sure they do that. So just to kind of recap, and then I'm gonna throw it to you one more time, Sean. But for our leaders, for our managers out there, the 5 questions you should be asking yourself. 1, have you set clear and concise expectations? 2, have you given them the tools to succeed? Have you created a culture of collaboration and of training? Do they know how exactly to get to their goal, right? 3, do they know that you care? Just at the human level, at the professional level, that's something that they need to feel. Number 4, are you appropriately celebrating them, right? And celebration should look different. I see leaders all the time. When they want to celebrate somebody, it looks different than their normal meeting structure. It isn't just thrown in on top of another meeting. Take them to a coffee, to lunch, send them a text, like Sean said, something different. And then lastly, are you comfortable enough as a leader to have those tough conversations at times about accountability with your team? If you answered yes to all those, we believe that you are on the path to great leadership. I don't know, did we forget anything, leave anything out, Sean?
Only thing I would say, just to kind of wrap that, and I know we're coming up on some time here, but I just understand that like leadership is not a one size fits all, right? Like everybody has a different approach that you need to take, and which is, again, you can have your high level non-negotiables. This is what we are as an organization, that everybody understands. These are the standards that we set. But then it takes you to apply that. Okay, now Brian, our 4 or 5 principles, right? Yeah, and you be able to list those off. Okay, but now I want to understand, for you to be better and effectively understand, like, how can I help you get there? What can I do to serve you as a leader, right? How do you like to be recognized? Because recognition, as you know, is important to me. But how do you like to be recognized? Do you want me to let everybody know in public, right? No, I'm good. I just as long as you're letting me know, some people don't like all that. Some people just want to know that you're aware. But again, if you don't know that, if you're not taking the time to address that, then you won't know what's really going to hit on the right cylinder for them. And so I think that's kind of a key element that a lot of people think, all right, let me check these boxes. They want to be recognized. Great. I'm paying them commission. Cool. They want to make sure they're accountable. I mean, I put it up on the board outside. They should see it every day. They walk by it and read it. I sent an email this morning, or I said that, like, that's not enough. You're checking boxes. And so what I would just challenge, everybody listening, is get out of your comfort zone of checking a box and get out of your office and figure out ways to really get on the sales floor, get in the marketing bullpen, whatever it may be, right? To understand what your people are going through every single day, so you can bring some human-centered leadership into the mix, to where people are feeling like, all right, we're in this together, right? And we're not, I'm not up here just directing and delegating and then getting all the praise, right? Like making sure that you're really taking a tailored approach to leadership.
Yeah. Man, that's so well said. Every time I spend time with you, I get better at my crafts. I appreciate it, buddy. We
I
need to
appreciate that, man.
connect soon. But thanks again, as always. Really appreciate it. I want to tell the
Appreciate you, man.
group, get on LinkedIn, add Sean. He's a great follow. Always just putting, good content, and you get to see some of the cool leadership things that he does. Thanks for coming on, man. Hopefully we get to see you in person soon. And yeah, we'll see you later.
All right, man. It was an honor. Talk soon.